Hey, everybody. My title today is The Long Road Back to Yourself, Self-Forgiveness After Unintentional Harm. And I want to begin by saying something very important and very simple. I'm deeply aware that just by clicking play on a talk like this may have taken more courage than anything else that you've done all week. And I want to acknowledge that. I want to honor your presence and your decision to listen to this talk. This talk is addressed to a very specific group of people. It's a group of people who know what it means for life to be split into a before and an after. An accident, a moment, a chain of events that you cannot rewind. And now you're living in the aftermath. I also want to be clear about what this talk is not. This talk is not about minimizing what happened. It's not about pretending that the loss doesn't matter. It's not about rushing toward peace or closure or moving on. And it is certainly not about telling you that everything happens for a reason. This is about something much quieter, something much harder. How do you live inside yourself after something like this? How do you breathe, wake up, relate, and go on when you're carrying the knowledge that another person died and that you were involved, indeed, even responsible? And are we even allowed to forgive ourselves? Well, with this talk, I want to offer you a framework, not answers, not fixes, but kind of a way of understanding self-forgiveness that's honest, slow, and humane. And if at any point you need to step away, you need to push pause, you need to write something down, you need to reflect on something, go for it. Take care of yourself first. Well, I want to begin by naming the weight that you and I are carrying, because people often assume that guilt is the heaviest thing after an accidental death. But guilt is usually only the top layer, because underneath guilt, there's often shock that never fully resolves and often leads to small but noticeable aftershocks. There's grief for the person who died. There's grief for their loved ones. There's grief for the person that you used to be. There's fear of being judged or rejected, fear of the social implications, most acutely from family and friends. There's moral injury. What kind of person does this make me? And there's a deep ongoing self-surveillance. If I had only. Many of us live with a mind that replays that moment endlessly. Different choices, different timing, different outcomes. Our brains, they're not doing this to torture us, but our brains are trying desperately to create a sense of control in a world that suddenly felt unsafe, unloving, out of control. And yes, over time, those replays often turn inward. They stop being about the accident and they start being about us. I don't deserve peace. I don't deserve happiness. I should suffer because they did. For many people, self-punishment becomes a way of staying loyal to the loss. If that resonates with you, I want you to hear this clearly. Your pain is not proof of your love. Your heartache is not a necessary, obligatory penance that needs to be paid. And your suffering is not what honors the dead. Now, why does self-forgiveness feel impossible? Well, for many of us, the idea of self-forgiveness can feel downright offensive, even dangerous. You might think, if I forgive myself, I'm saying it didn't matter. If I forgive myself, I'm letting myself off the hook. If I forgive myself, I'm betraying the person who died. So let's redefine what self-forgiveness actually is. Self-forgiveness is not forgetting. It is not excusing. It is not erasing responsibility. Self-forgiveness is the honest assessment of our true place in the universe as frail humans, subject to the changes and chances of the capriciousness of life, which can only live wholeheartedly when we acknowledge the reality of unintentional harm, its hurt, our responsibility, and our resilience. Self-forgiveness is the willingness to stop adding additional harm to a situation that's already tragic. There's the harm that's occurred, and then there's the harm that we continue to inflict upon ourselves. Self-forgiveness does not undo the first, it only addresses the second. Another reason self-forgiveness feels impossible is because many of us were taught explicitly or implicitly that good people don't cause harm. But the truth is far more uncomfortable. Good people can cause irreversible harm, especially in accidents. And when that happens, the question is no longer, am I good or am I bad? The question becomes, how do I live responsibly and humanely with what is now true? So let's talk about responsibility without self-destruction. One of the biggest misunderstandings about self-forgiveness is that it removes responsibility. In reality, self-hatred often blocks responsibility. When we are consumed by shame, our energy goes into hiding, numbing, or punishing ourselves. But when shame loosens, even slightly, we can become more capable of honest grief, meaningful remorse, changed behavior, compassionate presence, repair where repair is possible. There is a difference between saying, I'm a monster who should never feel okay again, and saying, I'm a human being who was involved in a tragic accident, and I will carry that truth with humility for the rest of my life. One of those sentences destroys us. The other sentence allows us to live responsibly. Self-forgiveness is not a verdict we deliver to ourselves. It's a practice. It looks more like allowing ourselves to eat without guilt, allowing ourselves to laugh without immediately punishing ourselves afterward, allowing moments of peace to exist alongside the grief. We can grieve deeply and still choose not to annihilate ourselves. Those are not opposites. So what's the role of compassion? I want to invite you to consider a question, not to answer out loud, just to take a moment, just to hold on to it. If somebody you loved came up to you and said, I was involved in an accident, somebody died, I'll regret this forever, would you tell them what you deserve to suffer for the rest of your life? Or would you say something like, I'm sorry, that's unbearable. I know you didn't mean for this to happen. This must be so hard for you. Self-compassion is saying, this is awful, and I'm still human. Many people resist compassion because they think it'll weaken them. But compassion is actually what gives us the strength to face reality without collapsing. You are not required to like yourself right now. You're only invited to stop treating yourself as disposable. So let's talk about a gentle reframe if I can. Here's a reframe that some people find helpful, not immediately, but eventually. Instead of asking, how do I forgive myself? Try asking, how do I live in a way that honors this loss without destroying myself? For some, that means living more carefully. For others, it means mentoring, service, advocacy. For others, it simply means choosing honesty over isolation. There's no single right answer. But none of those paths require you to hate yourself forever. Self-forgiveness is not about closing the book. It's about learning to live with an open chapter without bleeding on every page. So I want to end with this. If you are here, it means something in you still wants life, still wants connection, still wants relief, still wants a future that's not defined solely by the worst thing that's ever happened. That part of you is not wrong. You can carry sorrow and still carry yourself with dignity. You can remember the person who died without turning yourself into a life sentence. And you do not have to arrive at forgiveness today. Sometimes the most radical step is simply saying, I will not make this worse by hating myself right now. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. Thank you for surviving something that no one should have to carry alone.